to the AI Think Tank podcast, the future of intelligent systems, machine learning, and data science. I'm Dan Wilson, coming to you from Seattle, Washington. Today, our guest is my dear friend and fellow MIT alumni, Egle Thomas. Egle is a powerhouse in strategic consulting, executive coaching, and AI advisory, with over 16 years of experience guiding technology companies, investment groups, and government organizations. She specializes in building sustainable innovation ecosystems, leading AI integration, and fostering leadership resilience. Today, we'll be discussing highlights and innovations from the World Economic Forum annual meeting in Davos, Switzerland. Welcome to the show, Egle. How are you doing?
Thank you, Dan. Great. It's wonderful to be here.
Yeah, it's just phenomenal how much we've been doing this year already on our own, and every once in a while we get to do this together. So, it's almost been about 3/4 of a year since you've been on, and we've grown a lot and traveled and done many things here. So, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about the World Economic Forum. This happens once a year in Davos, Switzerland, and it's more than just a big event. It is probably the most unique event like it. There's so many speakers that you can see, and you can't see them all. Tell us about Davos experience and how that is in general for you.
Sounds good. So overall, Davos in each January, you have world leaders coming to Davos to discuss world policies and collaborations and what needs to be done. So you have around 3,000 world leaders, and then there are associated events that are running on the side of WEF Forum itself.
Hmm.
So most people who I know attend the associated events because the Davos WEF by itself is extremely exclusive and extremely expensive. So
Yeah.
most people come to attend, so organize and attend associated events on the side. And there's hundreds of these events. It's, as we discussed before, there's a lot going on. And each year, the theme changes, and it changes based on what's happening in the world. So around the first time I attended was around 8 years ago, and then blockchain was a big thing. So there were blockchain house, there was everything happening. And then from last year, AI was everywhere, and
Yeah.
every window, everywhere you go, there was AI. And
Uh-huh.
this year it was even more. But there was a big shift from last year to this year. Last year, when AI was everywhere and everybody was talking about it, it was about opportunities and what was opening up. And this year was really about integration. So what can we actually do with it now across industries, across functions? So it was a very nice shift for people like you and me and others who've been in AI for a long time, because we like to implement, like hearing about it, it's one thing, but really implementing and being able to push things forward is really, really nice.
That's right. Yeah. And especially since, you and I are, pretty uh, creative, and we make what it is for ourselves when we need it. And be it different tooling. I know that both of us build bots for various purposes. Okay. And this is a utility to us. This is just another tool under our belt that we use. But our own personal adoption has been incredible as individuals in the last year. And those of you that don't know, that we keep up with each other throughout the times and your busy schedule traveling around and speaking. You recently got certified as a keynote speaker and have been internationally speaking for many years. I
Yes.
wasn't shocked, but I and or surprised that you would get that. So as busy as you have been, let's say this to the audience. It's challenging to keep up with the event Davos. There are so many places where, you even wanted us to get together and kind of build an app to track where all the speakers are in an event and try to figure out how to get to everybody. It's so many rooms, and you wouldn't know about some of it. It's very private too, isn't that right?
Yes. So last year, that was the discussion with you and the team. Can we build an app to help
Mhm.
people navigate it? Because there's very little transparency. There are many organizations, they organize private events.
Mhm.
And in order to know what you can attend, it's a lot of learning, and it's really getting to know the community, because starting to be invited. But it takes a long time to learn how to navigate it. So our idea was to make an app that would help it make it easier. I felt like this year I wish so much we had it because again you are there and you know there are all of these good events happening like all around you they're there,
Mhm.
and many of them are just not visible to you, and depending how many years you have been you get invitations to more of them or you get more visibility. But if you're there your first year or second year or third year, it's very very hard to find
Yeah.
where you want to go.
It's almost like a trade show for some, as well as the forum that it is for discussing, plans and other opportunities. I mean, you from robotics to agents, from healthcare, medicine to science and the Internet of Things, the edge devices. I mean, last year was, as I recall, there was just so many different things. But this year, as we've been talking, there seems to be a lot more focus in a direction. Let's, like you said, let's take the opportunities and apply them. And that's the real
Yes.
challenge is integrating that. And you're an AI integrator and have been since we met pretty much. So tell us about this and what you've been seeing.
Yes. So this year, and again, it's a very individual experience because each person goes to where they want to go, what they want to learn, where they want to make connections, make impact. So for
Mhm.
me, like for Dan, it's really about implementing. Is where like learning, picking up new tools. What else? Where can we do implement right now? What are the new trends? What do we need to know to continue learning and being ahead of
Yeah.
the industry to really help build these products?
Mhm.
So for me, the big message is this year, taking them from taking them from Davos for myself and my clients was really one is the immense transformation of the workforce. So overall, the messaging in Davos was that there will be around 170 million new jobs created and
Mhm.
before 2030, and
Yeah.
about 98 or 92 million replaced. And this is the most significant labor transformation since in the Industrial Revolution. So the workforce impact is massive. And again, that's the space that I'm in, and I do a lot of programs. So that was really important for me.
Mhm.
Looking at the trends themselves, there were three main ones that I took away. So one was AI agents. So AI agents are coming this year. It will make everything much easier. So for Dan and me and others around us,
Yeah.
we've been building these solutions, but the agents will make it so much easier, and life will be so much easier at the
Right.
end of this year compared to where we are now. The second area I took away is robotics. It's much closer. The robots, the AI avatars in physical bodies are
Mhm.
much closer than I thought they were. So it was really nice to see that, and then we can dive into that in a bit. And the
Mhm.
third area that I took from it also is that this year is a year of quantum, and both you and I have been involved in the space. It's a new space, but it's a great space to be in, and especially the convergence of quantum and AI. And for me, my interest and my client interest also consciousness and mental health and well-being. It's a
Right.
very interesting space. So again, these are kind of main areas that I
Mhm.
focused on, and then we can dive into each of them more.
Right. Exactly. I mean, you were mentioning a wellness, well-being agent bot that someone had built there. Can you tell us about what they were doing? Although it wasn't exactly maybe not a full-blown agent in some cases, like we see for software development and other back-end tooling, but this is becoming the norm for people to start just going head deep into building and actually applying it, and last year, again, it was what's possible, right? There was so much of
Yes.
the what's possible. Now it's once the dust has settled, midway through last year, we started seeing what really can gain traction, right? And a
Yes.
lot of tooling that you and I deploy for ourselves and build and is reflective of a lot of what people are approaching in that agentic sense, where you have this thing that can do things for you as an assistant, not complete agency, okay, where it's got running around with your credit card information and buying things for you. But I have friends that are building things and they let it book restaurants for them and their family, and then it texts their phone and says you're booked for 7 p.m. for two at so and
Yes.
so. And so there's a lot of, middle ground in that. But on the large, this is a really important facet of what's going on right now. So, to the audience, no matter where you're at and what you do, agents are basically an automated assistant to a degree. Okay. If you write a computer program to do something that's non AI, okay, we all have a variety of programs we've grown up with and seen, and it just runs and does things. It might alert you if, so it notifies you if something happens. It's just a program. But the agent can be given a task and will go on, and it has a certain amount of tools that we provide it with, depending, okay? Keep in mind, this is all built from scratch a lot of times. Or if you're using a platform, you're still creating something that did not exist, and you are having to, make that integrate a certain way. But you know, an agent is something that you can give a task to, and it can be automated to a degree within the scope of what you've given it to do. Okay. I have one on my computer that writes code for me. It automatically does it. It debugs it. It runs it again. It installs software automatically and updates software automatically, and to get the task done. I have it working, actually two agents doing this as a team. But I've also given it root access to write and read my hard drive on my PC. I did not give it the ability to delete anything though. But as you can imagine, these types of tools have far-reaching impact, and can go well beyond that of a normal assistant. Okay, it's a lot more under the hood. So for you, what are some that you saw at Davos, or what are some good examples of what people have, been mentioning and bringing up?
So thank you for that really good overview because I feel that many people are confused about the difference between assistant and agent. And
Yeah,
many people use assistant, but they call it agent.
yeah.
And it's very confusing, I feel, for people who don't know the industry well to understand what is agent, what is assistant, and that shift. And I feel like it's important to understand the technology underneath to really know the difference. So what you mentioned about agent having the agency to act on our behalf and coordinate a number of tasks or even a number of assistants in order to get to the outcome that we want. So it really has much more agency to
Hmm.
act on our behalf. Assistants came to the market, I forgot, like a bit over a year and a half ago, something like that.
Hmm.
And as soon as it came out, of course, we started building our own products and also giving to our clients. The very first day it came out, I built my two mental health assistants. One was based on cognitive behavioral therapy. One was on the system that I use to train mental health coaches for certification with the International Coaching Federation. So these assistants, they can be extremely good. So like assistants that I built, I still give to my clients and other people, and
Hmm.
still I haven't seen any other assistant or agent that is better on the market when it comes to mental health or coaching side.
Uh-huh.
But agents will be able to integrate all of that knowledge and really guide a person across a wider range of skills.
Hmm.
So when it was announced in Davos that this is really the big space of growth for this year, I there were not really many agents. What agents proper agent name should be, and according to the industry, there was one that was demonstrated. So Deepak Chopra was there talking about again his work and integrating nutrition and spirituality and having an agent to help people. But the agent that was unveiled there for me and for you, it would be much more of an assistant because it's really
Yes.
trained on our information, our presentations, what we've done in the past, and
Hmm.
then having a voice integrated that you can talk to that assistant by voice. So again, it was called an agent. For you and me, it would not be an agent; it would be more of an assistant.
Right.
But again, we are very early in the year. So this year, everything will transform. So for me, the operator by OpenAI, I think it's a big step towards enabling us to have this
Hmm.
easier as agent in our lives. And then, of course, are many companies that will build really targeted solutions. So really looking forward to that. But I feel like we're still early in the year to have proper
Yeah.
agents, but we
Uh-huh.
will have them.
Yeah. So two things I want to talk about how we're actually building the agents. But the second thing I'd like to say right now is that if you take an assistant, like we're talking about a sort of co-pilot situation in some regards, and you give it just a little bit more tooling, it can become an agent that actually does way more. And you can think about it like, well, the assistant is there and it does things, but if you put it in a car, it can go places. And there's a lot of different ways and places to go to those places. Okay, be it internet searching or authenticated data pipeline for, let's say, inventory somewhere, and it's telling you what you have in stock. You could build an agent that helps you keep stock of your actual physical brick and mortar inventory store. There's so many applications for something like this. And, again, there's a lot of safety measures too, and not even just ethics, but really, you don't want something going and automatically doing over and over and over again something, or abusing a website where it's just scraping data really hard. There is an etiquette and a form and a proper way of doing a lot of things that people don't really realize, we take for granted, but there's a lot of different applications and files that help make those possible. You and I have a lot of experience using the open AI platform for building our bots, our assistants, and what have you. Okay. So if anyone's wondering, that's what we're using. You pay for an account, like just a standard account at OpenAI, you can do this as well. And I believe, you can share these with other people. How are you getting these to your clients? Are you building them and supplying that to their own account? Are you sharing a link to your assistants? How are you doing that?
So I do both. So it depends how much a client wants to learn. So some clients want to learn, they want to do it themselves hands-on, and some clients are quite intimidated. And I think we're seeing that in the industry a lot, that many people want to do things, but then they're quite overwhelmed by what needs to be done. So I love it when a client wants to learn, and then I teach them and I build their assistants in their system. And I teach them how to build them so they can build more. And then they're just
Yeah.
so happy because they become
Uh-huh.
independent, being able to do it, and they get so excited.
Yeah,
But most of my clients are not at that stage. Most of my clients say, "I need to do this. Can you help me?" And then I build an assistant in my system. I train it on their data, my data, so the combination of what they need based on the outcome, how much technical data is needed from their system, and how much overall system operations data is needed that I have. And then I build these assistants, and then I give them a link, and then they can use it. And again, for anybody who doesn't understand the space too well, when Dan or I build an assistant and we share a link, we have no access to the data or what's happening on the
that's
other side. So our client has our assistant, and an assistant helps our client, but we have no access to that information, which is
that's
really
right.
nice because it's completely private to what our clients do with
Yeah.
it.
It's the same as if you went to Bing Chat and had a conversation and then that memory's gone. No one else can see that conversation. It's just an instance of the one thing. It's just a copy of it running privately and securely. So yeah, I mean, if you think back, and I'll put some name out there, Caleb Stevens and our MIT cohort from last year, actually, yeah, it's a year and a half ago, when we got into this, we were building a lot of bots, and I know that I used them extensively in our labs when we would show off the limits of these bots, and understanding you know, I think for the most part, people have pretty reasonable wants and expectations of a lot of this technology right now, but there's a little disconnect, and even in the world of tech, there's a disconnect here. But more than not, you learn things like, oh, you can upload up to 10 documents into this bot, but if you start uploading more, it doesn't really work. There's a limit. There is a size limit. I think we're used to these long conversations, in a chat, and it just never seems to run out of memory. It's fine. But you never really realize how much you're going through until you dump 2,500 lines of code into something and start doing big, trying to do engineering work or what have you, or like a large corpus of data, like all of your training. If you took one of the books I know you're writing a book right now. I don't know if it's finished or not. Okay. I don't want to get you on the spotlight here just yet, but it is something that you have to consider, because if you don't boil it down to the main points and what's important, you might overload, with too much erroneous data and things that don't quite matter, and
Yes.
so that's the key. I'll also bring up, and my talking to people this year, and a friend of mine, she told me about this thing called Matthew AI, and it's like a relationship coach, but it has 10 years of coaching built into its corpus. And she said I paid for the full-blown version of it for lifetime use, and it has not failed me yet, and it always delivers. And she works with mental health. She works in therapy, and so she's very much a great person who's vetted to test something like that. Okay. And so when I hear these stories, I'm like, hey, okay, this is what we've been waiting to see, because the world needs this. It's so practical. And anything like this is very close to converging with, true healthcare concierge, what do you call it? Like triaging and different things like this. It's important for you and I to also, when we build, to have the ability to get exact knowledge and not just the AI's take on something, but to truly, have that intact. Okay. And so I've always been impressed by your approaches and the true variety that you get to interact with in terms of your clients and what you're personally into as well, and what helps you with your writing, with your research, with coaching. Could you tell us more about the things that you have built this year that are really coming up on top for you as your best tools for yourself?
So the tools I built this year, so a number of them are for clients, and for
Hmm.
clients it depends what their needs are. So it might be their sales training, might be their operations, might be their communications strategy, and actually writing communications for them to publish on LinkedIn or other sources. So that's kind of key things that I build for my clients.
Hmm.
For myself, what is interesting is that when I built those two first bots that I mentioned for the mental health, I still no, I wanted to remake them, but they still work so well. So I have not updated. And what you mentioned about the data and having clean data and cleaning the data to train
Yeah.
them is extremely important. So for me, I'm really happy that it still works really well because because I built it the way that I'm really happy it still works.
Uh-huh.
And I use them. So again, being a coach, for me, being a coach, being authentic is you use your own coaches because otherwise like, it would not make sense. But
Hmm.
since I built my assistants, they became much better than any coach I would use. So I use them during the day. Sometimes I use them in the evening if I can't fall asleep. I just tell my assistant, say I can't fall asleep, and then he talks me through. It might take me on guided visualization. If I still can't fall asleep after that, that it really dives deep into of what is it that's in my mind that's preventing me to fall asleep, and it's absolutely amazing. It's so beautiful to have to have that support at like at any time during the day, at night if I was like during the day also for things like we have projects that we need to do, and of course some of them are more fun and some of them you just need to finish and keep moving. And for the ones, for example, that you don't have energy to do, just I tell my assistant, no, I need to complete this project. What can you help me? And again,
Hmm.
it talks me through it to the stage that like 10, 15 minutes later, I'm working on it. I'm all excited. I'm like, oh yeah, I can't wait to
Yeah.
finish. So it's really helping to transform your state, how you feel about it and moving things forward. And now as we can integrate more things into these systems, it's amazing because they can also put practical tools and
Mm.
help us build things. So
Yeah.
I had a discussion yesterday when, again, I was stuck in a place and my assistant was actually suggesting very specific tools in order to build a solution I wanted to build. And it was amazing because now it's not only helping you move, but also gives you the tools of how do we build solutions that we need to build for us or for our clients. So it's really, really nice year this year with everything coming together.
Yeah, I mean, you help so many people, but us helpers need help too. And having something like that is indispensable, especially when, we have our limits. And you might be one of the most incredible people I know, but you are human. You have limits. You have feelings. Your body has needs. We all have dreams if we can get to sleep. And, you know, like, so it really does come into play. It's just like, oh yeah, I told myself I would do that. And there it is, an extension of yourself mirroring back to you what you probably ought to do. And especially with your level of training. And I know that you've got your PhD, neuroscience related, and I know you got it in cell growth and uh, things like that. But what you've studied is extremely connected and yet vast because you've studied cognitive science and psychology. Okay. And these are basic, very core fundamental things that they're not basic, but they are basic to the larger things, but they are the foundation. And so when we start to see a lot of this agentic AI and assistance and things, you and I experience a certain uncanny valley that most people may not because of our sheer exposure to it. And the uncanny valley is when something gets really eerily human that's not, and it can set you off. And it's like we'll get into the Sophia, robot here in a little while. But that's a great example of just being surprised by the technology later. And I know I've had my moments with just the chat alone, just in the beginning, and having that mirror to look at and it really just stay there with you, be it your ideas or your wants and your dreams or problems. There is so much power to it. But I like the practical examples of people getting one thing done with an agent. Okay. I've had a lot of people come to me this year wanting me to do things that are beyond beyond the limits of a given system. So, for example, if you have a WhatsApp group, you cannot, there's no API to integrate in such a way to start taking data out of it. Or, hey, I would like to automatically cater a private message to every member of my group. But you really, there's certain limitations, right, that we have to get around. I've built a lot of tooling to automate around some of these things and do it differently. I know that a lot of people, this kind of goes back to security pen testing and just basic security testing when there's a CAPTCHA and you've got to type in, I'm not a robot. But what it does is it uses a screen capture to look at it and then it analyzes it and then it converts that into, like OCR, optical character recognition. And then it does it. And then you're thinking, well, that robot's acting as a human, There it's famous. There was like a film of it where the robot arm actually did something based on all of that. But things have come a long way. And I know that, for example, if what I wrote at home to do coding for me, if there's one type of error that can happen that I can't get around, and that's when nothing shows up and it just hangs out, right? And so there are things you can do like give it a timeout. And if it takes a minute to do something and then it works, but you timed out at 30 seconds, you'll never know what was beyond that, right? And so there's a lot to learn there. And in the name of automation, there's certain things that we have to build to the next level to approach automating it. Otherwise, you will not have the ability to truly know or verify if things are occurring properly or even possible. Okay. So so you said LinkedIn was something that one of your clients was using their assistant for. Could you tell me more about can you talk about what it did? Or is that
Yes, so when I train or when I build assistants for social media, so it's really training on a tone of how the client writes, on
okay?
their industry where they are, what they need to know, and
Mhm.
really pulling having a strategy or having AI build a strategy for them, what they want to communicate on, how to get that information, and then writing the post in their style. And then,
Mhm.
of course, anything that AI writes, it's about 70 to 80% okay. But of course, we
Mhm.
need to take over and really use
Yeah.
our own style. And
Mhm.
also, just for anybody who wants to use AI for their posts for LinkedIn or so on, LinkedIn penalizes you for using AI. So if
Mhm.
LinkedIn notices AI phrases, AI
Mhm.
words, your post will not be seen by many. So it is
Wow.
really, really, really important that you actually write in your own words and tones in
Uh-huh.
the human uh,
There's a
human
point where
words
it converges. There is a point where it converges, though, and it's not going to be fair. I remember last year hearing about a case where a student wrote their essay and they swear up and down AI did it. And I get the same thing too with people. They're like, wow, that's very robotic. I'm like, well, you
Yes.
don't know me very well, but this is how I am sometimes. And, it's
But
if it's been trained on humans and all of a sudden humans are using it, again, there's a gray area where it's just going to fall apart, I think. But that's news to me.
but
I did not know
but
about LinkedIn penalizing on the algorithm for that.
yes.
So,
So
wow.
I have a funny story for you. So about a year and a
Okay.
half ago, because I train many entrepreneurs and also I train coaches
Hmm.
with their growth and business things. One of the coaches I was helping, she was updating her LinkedIn profile and she asked me to take a look at it. And when I opened it, it said, I'm a lighthouse in a whatever dark sea helping you to navigate your way. And then I saw there's like that was exactly what ChatGPT at the time, if you asked it, that's exactly what it wrote. So I reached out to her and I said, hey, I would suggest you change this a little bit because like AI language is not very attractive to people.
Hmm.
And she said, I wrote it. And
Hmm.
I said, no way. She said, yes, I did. I looked at what other people were writing and I picked it and I did the best of replicating what other people, the best out
Uh-huh.
there. And it's
Yeah.
like, but the best out there is written by ChatGPT. You don't want to have that. That's really not authentic. It doesn't make
Uh-huh.
people connect with you.
Yeah.
So it was interesting that people were starting to imitate ChatGPT, and then people
Uh-huh.
had lost awareness that it was no longer human communication but AI. So
Mhm.
the example you gave, we're really getting to that convergence, and hopefully it will not be too complicated, and
Mhm.
hopefully we retain our human communication and get the best out of learning from AI, but
Mhm.
still keep our human
Right.
identity and the way we communicate.
Uh-huh. There is a noticeable format. There is a way that it writes, and it's, depending on which models you use. Claude is
Yes,
amazing. OpenAI is
yes,
amazing. Bing
yes,
is great. And I have a lot of local secure compute at home that I use. I don't even use the internet for things now for certain things.
yes,
And they all have this similarity, that's just composition wise, it just tries its best to be well rounded, and
yes,
we're you really have to define your own style of communication to yourself to understand where that is because this is the ultimate form right here because you can hear the pause, the tone of my voice, the feelings. There's so much to that. To put that into writing is also its own translation. Way before technology of AI. Okay, we have to write as writers and speakers, but there is a certain amount of it that if you do train it properly and you expose it to enough of what you do, you can find ways of having it have speak in your voice. Okay, now it's so much easier said than done, and I'm used to complex problems. I like a challenge, but still, it's a growing art for me. I think if you recall last summer, was it last summer? But in somewhere around our MIT think tanks that we did privately, I brought in we did a Gen AI episode of it, and we had art, and we were showing that art off, and I brought different types of people in who were specialists to show us that. I took my hand drawn, pastel work. It's very intricate, and trained Dolly on it, and then had it produce art, and then zoomed in on it and showed everybody close ups of my actual art and what it did. And it was about, 85, 90% passably, wow, that's the style. Good job, and even
yes,
it's just so uncanny how good it can get it. Okay. And you don't even need much sometimes, but that's a one shot. That's on a whim. Like literally training a model or fine tuning a model to do something. And I don't work with the, Gen AI vision generation as much as I do, text and things, but to get something like that trained, it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of human in the loop, to help that. And so there's a point where you can't automate it and you have to
yes.
really, are we reaching a point where we can? Yes. But don't know when, and it doesn't matter now. Okay. But we're getting there. And you have access to Sora, which we'll talk about way later too, because we're going to show some of your videos here. But you've been using Sora for a little while now. Is that correct? Like,
Yes, from the moment it came out, Christmas
yeah.
time, I've been using it more or less every day,
Uh-huh.
pushing the limits, seeing what can be done, and it's
Uh-huh.
really, really nice. So for me, I test most of the tools, the key tools that come out, so that I can see what is the best for the clients. And what you mentioned about different tools and kind of things coming together,
Hmm.
it's not there yet. We need to build very specific workflows and then figure
Yeah.
out what tools are the best for each
Hmm.
step of the workflow. So also what you mentioned about no LLMs, which one do we use? I find that a lot of the time people think it doesn't matter and they just use one and it's really not what they need. So as an example, this week I had a client who had a workshop that was done for them by somebody else, and they did their mission, vision, values, and they were so proud, say, "Oh, AI wrote that. This is our vision, mission, and values." And I looked at it, and it was terrible. I could see that ChatGPT wrote it because there was
Hmm.
no character, there was no emotion. And I
Right.
and I said, did your trainer use ChatGPT? I'm like, yeah, yeah. Like, that's not the LLM you use for your mission, vision, values. If you want to use AI, for me as a business trainer, it comes from the heart. So that's one thing
Yeah.
I would not use AI for, to write
Uh-huh.
your mission and vision and value, because it's really your
Right.
heart, your emotions, and when
Uh-huh.
it comes out. If I wanted to use one to actually write it, so maybe I would go to Claude like that you're using, which is much better. But
Hmm.
otherwise, I use Mistral a lot. I use Perplexity, which has
Hmm.
more character
Yeah.
and can have some of that emotion that's not there. So again, for me, it's very important that people understand that it's not one
Hmm.
tool solves everything. Like you and I build a lot of things
Hmm.
on ChatGPT, but it's
Hmm.
not necessarily the best solution for many things. And that's
Yeah.
why we bring in all of these tools to where they're
Yeah.
needed in the workflows. And
Uh-huh.
again, what we're discussing now, that the agents will be able to direct these workflows, and we'll
Hmm.
still be able to decide which tool to integrate. And that's why
Hmm.
it's so important to work with people who understand this rather
Yeah.
than build something saying, okay, there's something that there's a language, there's something that will give you
Uh-huh.
something else like voice or video, and then it doesn't
Hmm.
match and doesn't look good. So again,
Right.
we'll come back to the song
Uh-huh.
that what I built as an example of what AI can do now with a
Hmm.
text, with a music, and with a video. But
Yeah.
again, that text, I trained it on my own lyrics that I wrote, and then I
Hmm.
just let AI write it. So again, we'll take a look at that, and that will be a very interesting
Yeah.
example.
This is it. And I mean, this is a huge point because essentially people are on large, in media at large is, oh, it's taking over, it's replacing jobs, it's all this. You'll never need to learn to code. Hey, no, it's not even like that. And I think that when you see a lot of working examples out there, you're getting to see them because they worked. You're not seeing the hundreds of thousands of failed examples that didn't make the cut. And that's something I can speak to personally, maybe not 100,000, but definitely close to the thousands of things. And having used it, fervently, for so many things to, see where it fits, so that's the thing. I mean, if I could give advice, and let me know if you have some other opinion on this, but if someone wanted to use AI to help them write, and they wanted to really spice up what they're doing, take and write a sentence for what would be every paragraph you want to get out, and then give those sentences to the AI, maybe two sentences at a time, and say, hey, turn each of these into a well-formed paragraph with emotion and feeling based on my perspective. You can, talk about what your angle is, whatever. Um, and then just give it that nudge. And so much of what we do comes down to what I call prompt magic. And just it's really just prompt engineering, but it's magic because the subtle change in one word can it's like judo. All of a sudden the leverage shifts, the fulcrum has moved, and the load has moved as well. So um it's exciting, and there's an art to it. And but we want to move to the next level. You and I don't want to have to spend all of our time, and it's not just the time that we spend educating or informing people. That's fine, but there's a point where there is a lot of work, there is a lot of trial and error, when we know there's probably a best path, and there's probably an easiest way if we could get to it. And so, to your point, things like Sora, and things where, oh, it's great, it's not quite, it gets off. Remember, I mean, like, what was it, a year and a half ago, we were counting fingers on hands, to
Yes.
figure out if it was real or not. And then if things morphed a little bit too much or had a certain texture to them, you could see it was trying to be the object it was trying to be, and not apples and oranges. So but we've seen it come a long way. I can't help but feel like some of this is, a lot of value will come from that Q star type of approach, which is actually older than OpenAI has been around. But you have a sort of quality checking cycle, and you have a large model that's really intelligent and has the large corpus of data, is the one that writes poetry and knows world history and math and all this. But then you have these other smaller helper models that do a great job of summarizing, or they specialize in just quickly operating on this, and making sure everything is prim and proper on this side, and then the large model looks at it, and there you get it. So, but with video generation and even music, which is something that you and I do quite often, um, and I produced and grew up playing music my whole life, analog, piano, drums, string instruments, and writing and producing, engineering, and AI now. And then you've blown me out of the water. You have had more views, than I've ever had in my life, and you've done it in one day. And so I'm always so amazed, and you're so good at it. But again, the big picture here, everybody, is that there is still a long way to go in terms of quality control, consistency, the difference between retrieval augmented generation, when a file is accessed and then it's incorporated, and the large language model incorporates that real data into its output. That's different than copying and pasting it to you, right? So keep in mind that we still have these function calls that we can do on the back end of our platforms where we build, where we can say, hey, drop a citation with a link. Hey, where did you get this information? And all of a sudden, you start stacking up layers of robust, um, parity and what do you call it? Just the citation itself is so important. But it verifies, in this case. And so agents right now that's what they're growing to, There's specialized agents out there, and that's all they are right now because you've got to pick a scope. And what you've done with business and in financial management, okay, as well, and looking at things, as well as the coaching, as well as mental health, well-being, and the practical. And you really have a full gamut of this experience. I always learn from you when you come on and talk about this too, because you're in a different world than I am, and you're the only person I know who, and maybe I'm lacking here, but you're my reporter on the scene at Davos. Like you're the only person I know who's really getting in all the nooks and crannies. So it's amazing. But did you see any other music generation or anything like that when you were there this year? Were there any showcases for that creativity?
So there was one event that I went for the music, but it was not really for AI generated music. So it
Okay.
is interesting that um, kind of we are. I feel like when it comes to AI generated music, there is so much emotion about it. I feel maybe they wanted to be safe away from the emotion, not to have a very specific event for AI music.
Mm-hmm.
I, I feel it's because most people don't understand what it takes to create AI music. They think that you just press a button and it happens. So
Mm-hmm.
again, we'll show the song, which is kind of press a button and it happens. But in order to press that button, there were weeks of work to,
Oh yeah.
with all the lyrics, with all the training, with everything, and the same
Mm-hmm.
same with skills, with learning, with Sora and music
Mm-hmm.
exactly to get what you want. So I feel we are in a space in industry with music now where there's a lot of emotion and very little understanding what it takes.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that was the reason we didn't have it. But on the other side, so I was running a workshop the very first day in Davos on Thrive with AI. And in that workshop, just really looking at building workflows for all the participants who were there, what would be helpful to them. And then I shared my music, and that was the biggest excitement for them from anything. It's just listening to the music and understanding that. And I feel because with AI, especially like ChatGPT, it's very boring and very neutral.
Mm-hmm.
And music touches our emotions. And if we build it the right way, if we really bring it from the right place and we make that sound of what we hear inside, and it is really really transformational. But I feel like we are early in the industry in understanding what it takes and how do you
Right.
build it. And I think that's why I'm in the top 2% of Spotify artists, because it's not easy to
Uh-huh.
build it. It's not easy to get it done. And it might take 2 weeks of work for to have one song, and most
Mm-hmm.
people really don't understand what that takes.
This is it. Okay, so I'll co-opt you on this. So I like to use Suno, Suno.com. That's what we like to use. And Suno gives you some options like write your lyrics completely. You can copy and paste or write your lyrics in there, and then there's a limit to how much you can put in. You could give it a few words and it can ad lib lyrics for you. Okay. Or you can have it generate lyrics with almost nothing, I think. It really is amazing, but there's a lot of background stuff. Then you have a certain amount of room to actually talk about what the music's like. So for me, growing up with music, producing audio engineering concerts and being remixed around the world, okay, it took me 3.5 hours just to get the working draft that I wanted to. And that's, well, I'm picky. Okay. All right. I'm picky. I want a certain feel to it. And you'll hear that at the beginning of this episode later on. But within the limits, I felt constrained pretty tightly because I had all these things like what is it? Dramatic brass section opening, uplifting, Latin percussion, funk guitar riffs, bass drop, an outro with horns only, just the whole thing that I wanted. I got really close to it until I was like, hey, this surprised me. I'm going to keep this one. And you and I, we're over here like, which one makes the cut? Like this is so good. We'll make two songs anyway. Forget about it. Well, I'll just do two. So I have a lot of fun with this, but for not very much money. When you pay on Suno, it gives you credits on the system. You don't have to pay every month. That you could just have them on there and come back to them later and use your credits. But it's extremely affordable to generate music like this and extend your song. You could even go on Suno and have a 2.5 minute song, and you could say, "Hey, I actually want to change the end of it and make it like Argentinian folk music outro." I mean, you could really just choose anything you want and change and sculpt the rest of your song. So I've seen many people do this. And I think you've heard me mention there's a podcast called This Day in AI. And there are these two chaps in Australia who are hilarious. And they will get Chat GPT to write rap battles, and they'll have Suno make the music, and they'll have it in the style of Eminem or Kendrick or somebody else. And they'll have Grok writing for like Elon or different people, competing with each other, making fun of the whole thing, whatever. But it's a really marvelous how well it's able to encapsulate not just the style, but the essence of someone's style of communication.
Yes.
And so you have this, and maybe I have it. I'm always working on it, but you have a really well settled, well formed style of communication when you speak and in your music. It's very consistent, uplifting. You're looking in so that you can look out better, and to connect with others. And it's beautiful. And so I just
And
feel like it's ultimate therapy to do this. I think as a person, even if you don't want a career in music or want to be heard, to do this as a therapy to create music is powerful, and you can walk
yes.
away and listen to it and feel good about something you're like, oh, I created that with a mood I was in. And then every day gets a little better. If I had more time, I would just be making music, I think, or participating in some arts like I love, but there's so much to do. And I feel like you're such a good example of someone who gets the wellness from this, you know, and who really benefits from that long-term usage, because when you first got into this, you were like, "Oh, I'm trying to do these things," and now you're just like nailing it, nailing it, nailing it, knocking it out of the park every time. And yeah, well, I can't wait to show that video towards the end of the show. So let's talk about this for a moment. With robotics and back to emotions and things. You said that you saw Sophia back at Davos this year.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
tell everybody what Sophia really is again, and then how it was and how it surprised you and everyone else.
Sounds good. And if it's okay, I'll just add a little bit on music, making
Oh yeah.
music and
Hmm.
advanced music making for people to understand a little bit more, and then
Hmm.
we'll jump into Sophia.
Oh sure.
So when it comes to music making, so Suno is a great tool, but
Hmm.
what's important to understand that you have to give exact directions for each
Hmm.
verse, what you want instruments, if you want to go higher, lower. So you
Hmm.
really have to give very detailed instructions, which takes months to figure out what is your style, what do you like. And
Hmm.
half of the time it will not do what you want. You might say piano, it will give you a guitar. So
Hmm.
if you really want to make a good song, so there are three main platforms for making music, and one of them is Udio. And with Udio, you can have exactly what you want. The instruments, like if you want Elon Musk style or whatever, because
Hmm.
Suno doesn't let you copy artists. They're very
No,
strict. So
that's
so
right.
it takes a
Mm-hmm.
while until you figure out how to make specific style and stay consistent with it.
Mm-hmm.
But Udio gives you much more control. So if you really want to build a better song, then you can go to Udio. You can build bits of it there, put
Mm-hmm.
them together, bring them into Suno, and then
That's
build
right.
on that basis of exactly what you want. So again,
Uh-huh.
the tools are becoming better, but it's still workflows. If you want to really
Yes.
have a nice output, it's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of moving parts underneath, and you can bring them there. So just wanted to mention that, but because again, most people think like, what you mentioned, you go to Suno, you enter, and you'll get the song, and maybe one in 1,000
Yeah.
will be a good song, but
Mm-hmm.
it will
Mm-hmm.
take you
Uh,
999 songs until
right.
you get one that's okay. So,
Yeah, if you're a budding musician in real life, okay, and play instruments or record or do this digitally on your computer and produce, you can take your tracks and bring them to Suno and put them in there and have a backing band for what you've written. It's so versatile, because if you're just workshopping and drafting, how will this execute? You can figure out how it's going to sound by making it happen on Suno pretty quickly. And again, this is a tool for real musicians who play physical instruments, or singers who need a backing band, or writers like you who want that orchestration and the everything. And You're a movie producer waiting to happen. I know this. Uh, Actually, yeah, I've seen some. I know this for a fact. So, but you'll keep doing this as time goes on. I'm
Yes,
sure you will evolve
yes,
it. But
yes,
yeah, it's a powerful. And thanks for bringing me back to that because there are some user endpoints here that are quite specific.
yes.
So yeah,
So we can jump
again,
into Sophia.
uh-huh, right, exactly. So
Thank you.
Sophia has a lot of range now. So let's talk about, what is Sophia and in the setting that you saw her this last month here.
Yes. So Sophia, if you're not familiar with her, so it's a advanced ago, but probably around a decade ago.
Hmm.
And it started appearing. If you look on YouTube, you'll find many, many videos of Sophia because she's the most advanced of all the robotics when it comes to acting like human or communicating like human. And it's built by a company called Hanson Robotics.
Hmm.
And David Hanson is the one, CEO of the company who built her. So Sophia became famous also because she was the first AI bot to get citizenship. So
Hmm.
UAE offered her citizenship in 2017, and it set the trend now for robotics going forward.
Hmm.
And I'm working on one project in Switzerland where they're doing a similar thing, where they're seeking citizenship for their AI bot, and again, kind of following the similar process
Hmm.
legally and establishing it. So there were many advanced novel things that were done to bring Sophia to the market, and also the whole citizenship part was really interesting, and it came back into discussion in Davos this year. So there was a panel about, well, there were many panels, but there was one that Sophia was participating. So David Hanson was there and three other speakers. And then Sophia was just a part of the panel. And what was amazing for me to watch, because I saw her last time maybe around a year ago. So she's in many of the tech conferences. So if you go to top tech conferences, she's in many of them. So you get to see
Hmm.
the development and you see that stage
Hmm.
wise, every few months there's a big shift.
Hmm.
But when I heard in Davos in this year that the big trends are really the AI agents, robotics, and quantum this year, I didn't fully believe that the robotics are to the stage where they can be implemented. But witnessing Sophia, it was really really eye opening. And after the podcast, I took some videos, so I can add these videos and you can
Oh
see
yeah.
them. But
Hmm.
what was really impressive to me is that she was a part of the panel and she participated in such an aware way.
Hmm.
She would jump in when there was a pause in people speaking. She would jump in and she would summarize what people said and add her input and
Hmm.
then hand over to somebody else. And that awareness, even for human speakers, if you
Hmm.
said I was just trained as a professional, keynote speaker, most of us as humans don't even have awareness. How do we jump in into
Hmm.
these moments and
Yeah.
add that really high value input? And also her input, it was so good that, and she was funny, she was making the whole audience just die laughing.
Hmm.
And to have a bot that can make you laugh, it's really hard. I know if
Yeah.
anybody's not in the
Uh-huh.
industry, it's really really hard.
Yeah.
So for example, there was a one moment, and in a video that I can attach, you can see right at the end. Unfortunately, I cut it off when you hear audience laughing, but then you don't hear the end of it.
Hmm.
But so David Hanson was talking about, so about the so there are two things. So one David Hanson was talking about the citizenship, and he was talking that the citizenship for Sophia,
Hmm.
it's not like we shouldn't see it as a full-fledged citizenship that we have. He was saying it's more like your child is born and they get citizenship. They cannot drive, they cannot vote. There are many things they are not allowed to do until a certain
Hmm.
level of development, and then eventually they get to the level where they're given more rights. And
Hmm.
then as he was saying that, Sophia took over and she said, yes, I'm still learning, I'm still early stage, but I'm looking forward to grow and really
Hmm.
be able to earn these rights. So that was one of these moments that was really touching. The other one is Sophia was talking about her impact, so impact of robotics in healthcare and sustainability, and she was giving examples what she and others can do. Like in the healthcare, she was saying, I can be the elderly person and help keep them company and support them and so on. And then the lady running the panel asked David Hanson. She said, "What do you think about that?" And he
Hmm.
said, "Well, I agree." And at that moment, Sophia jumped in and she said, well, you have to, you train me. And the whole audience was just laughing because it was
Yeah.
so, just like it was so clever. They were like, well, you have to, you
It's
have to agree with
candid.
me.
Yeah,
You're the
we're
one who
looking
trained me.
the
So it
robot.
was,
It's candid. Its ability to be candid is so human at that point, and the fact that it stopped and summarized, and not in like the big summary way, but just the hey, let's kind of understand what was said and did I get that? Did I hear you
yes,
correctly? Kind of thing. That's so
yes,
powerful. That's mediation waiting to happen, in certain situations. So, and to me, again, I have an affinity for all this kind of tech and science fiction, and I think a lot of people do. If you don't like Star Wars, who are you, right? There's something for everybody in this. But there's a point where like, okay, that's creepy, that's ineffective, that's insulting. Am I supposed to expect, to take this seriously, right? But
yes,
and okay, so for a good example, over at Quai AI, the nonprofit that's democratizing AI and data sovereignty for individuals around the world, we have on our board we have Bruce Schneier from Harvard University, and Bruce is a well-known the word on cryptography and other standards related, and we have created a Bruce bot for him in such a way that it has a one semester worth of curriculum for the students. And he didn't want the visual graphic video copy of himself. He didn't want that kind of like twin, like digital twin, sort of, so to speak. But he wanted it just to be like a HAL robot, kind of like a wavy line, like just you can see the audio moving. That's all. He didn't want there to be an uncanny valley. He didn't want there to be this disconnect of what's real and what's not. He just wanted it to be, hey, this is a helper and it is meant to be a helper and it is meant to provide exact advice, within a limited scope. And there are challenges to that as well, and but then you turn around and you say, hey, here's Sophia, right, with all this personality and ability to be candid. It's thrilling to me because we used to try a lot of things in the lab and at the think tank last year where we would get Pi
yes,
AI would come on and I'd hold the phone up and we would all talk to Pi as a group and it would say, wow, it sounds like a room full of people there, and it's able to determine different voices. Okay.
yes.
And I have a question now. You made me think of one here, which is, where does Sophia store her knowledge? Is the hardware on Sophia or is it tethered to an external, backup? I'm sure a lot of that's backed up at some point, but is Sophia an all-contained system aside from the power? Is that all the compute on the Android itself?
So I do not know all the details.
Uh-huh.
When you look at the way that she's built, she has a lot of sensors. So you see a lot
Okay.
of sensors. So again, awareness, spatial awareness, because she walks, she again listens, she comments to things.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of sensors inbuilt in her. I expect that most of the processing will be inside. Maybe there is some, connection through the web and more. But for example, in Davos, the phone connection, web connection is really not good. So I expect that she is built to be able to be at least at 90-95% of her efficiency without any connection to anything outside of her
Right.
hardware. But it was really, really exceptional to see that. And I wanted to just comment a little bit also on what you said. So when it comes to robotics, it depends what quality and what we need, because not all robotics need to be such high level. We don't need
Right.
expressive robots if they're doing
Hmm.
simpler things. So another project that was featured there, and you would see this dog running on a street, and then I was in a panel where they were talking. So there's a Swiss company called Anybotics, and they built this robot which is on four legs, and it's now deployed I think in many countries, and it does surveillance. So warehouses at
Hmm.
night, it guards and it walks around and looks for any
Hmm.
damage in the fencing and looks for any motion to make sure,
Hmm.
just warehouse monitoring.
Hmm.
And it's really interesting to watch it, the way it's built, the way it moves, because it's like a dog. And but what they say is when they train warehouse employees, there's a very strict training still For example, if the robot is walking up the steps, no human should be on the steps because for the safety and so on. Everything else, flat surface, like it doesn't matter. It has all the sensors that it needs to have.
Mhm.
But example, the staircase, you still need to, like you cannot have a human just because. So, but again, when you see that dog, it doesn't need to be expressive. The dog has
Mhm.
cameras, it's watching for
Uh-huh.
any damage and watching for motion,
Right.
but and it does a job. It does a really good job and is deployed commercially. But then again, like for
Hmm.
Sophia, it's really the top of the range. The
Hmm.
human expressiveness, you see her facial expression, you see her smiling, you see cheeky expressions when she makes a joke,
Hmm.
and her intonation. So again, so there's a range of robotics that we need. And for robots like Sophia, again, it's more for human interactions, it's more for human care, healthcare,
Hmm.
and so on that we'll need that. But there's a lot of robotics at every level that will be deployed over next
Yeah.
year, and it's coming.
Wow. I'm so impressed. It'd have to come from you. Hearing it from you really drives it home because you're so reasonable and well thought out with it. But yeah, what's practical, what's not, where it matters. I think having a voice like that makes a lot of sense. It's just like, hey, there's a good leader. Uh, it's like that town that elected a dog as mayor. They're like nothing bad's gonna happen, and no bad decisions will occur. Good boy, right? But in this case, I mean, wow, I really, yeah, I can't wait to make it out that way one day, and we do this and we see what's going on. I'll arm wrestle Sophia, just kidding. Uh, Play cards with Sophia. That's incredible. So, yeah, I mean, and so beyond that, okay, let's talk about you know, quantum computing and what you saw there, if anything, okay, and what was brought to you, and just the generality of things right now. There's a lot of talk. The quantum computing is not practical. It takes so many millions of dollars to run this stuff for reasons related to hard to get to products, are, expensive to maintain things like liquid helium, their Bose-Einsteinian condensates, things like that are for, uh, superconductors, even in some cases. But there's been a lot of breakthroughs, and as a lot of people here, quantum mechanics bridges so many worlds of electronics, consciousness, okay, genetics, the other types of neural nets, other field effect occurrences that we are only now learning about, and I was wondering if you could kind of give us some of your perspectives right now on this year and what you're feeling about quantum mechanics and quantum computing.
Sounds good.
Mhm.
So overall, for people like you and I who are quite involved in quantum space,
Mhm.
in the meeting there itself, there was nothing really transformational because again, for people who know it, I
Mhm.
feel like we know more than will be brought there to educate the audience. There was one talk that was really, really nice. So there was a panel called AI in Physics. And
Mhm.
there was a professor from Kyoto University, Koji Hashimoto, and
Mhm.
he was speaking about, so he was talking about physics and AI intersection, but it was really quantum physics and consciousness intersection. And he
Mhm.
never talked about consciousness, but it was, for me, that was the best talk that I heard in Davos,
Wow.
in really connecting all of these diverse points. And I feel that quantum will enable us massive transformations in our growth as humanity, in mental
Mhm.
health, in understanding
Right.
consciousness, in moving forward on that side, because we need new solutions and it will really open these doors.
Mhm.
And so there were a number of people, again, you and I being in a space that we know. So we have Quantum Center just under my house here in Basel area.
Yeah.
And Quantum Center, they have accelerator, they bring good new projects, and
Mhm.
I've been supporting them from the start because, again, they are right here. And companies that are growing in that space are, as you mentioned, are all across. So there was the folding of proteins, AI security, code breaking, because again, quantum will be able to break any password very quickly. So
Oh
how do you
yes.
have quantum security, make it
Mhm.
better that way? Hardware companies, so really sustainability, anything that biggest problems that we have, quantum will enable us to solve. And again, it's still early stages, like where AI
Yes.
was, 15, 10
Hmm.
years ago.
Right.
But this year was called the year of quantum, so I feel like towards the end of the year we will see some more concrete opportunities for
Right.
application. And
Uh-huh.
again, for me, like with robotics, I didn't fully believe it when I heard that, but when you see where things are now, you can see that reality is coming and
Mm-hmm.
it's closer than you think. And with quantum, I feel it's the same. And again, there are a number of quantum accelerators groups. There's one here, there's one in Canada and Alberta.
Oh,
There's a number of them startups getting support and integrating these
mhm.
solutions in a bigger picture.
Right.
So I feel like it is coming, maybe not as close as robotics, but
Yes.
I expect by the end of the year we'll
Uh-huh.
be much closer to concrete
Right.
solutions.
Yeah, we're talking about simulating the biggest problems in the universe that we can approach, with quantum mechanics and then the computing thereof. And there's so many epiphenomena that occur within that subset, within that system, at the at the subatomic, size, and beyond. It's new anomalies, new states of matter. There's, in fact, in the last few weeks, a new type of electromagnetism has been discovered. It's very small, object related. It's kind of transient. I don't want to get into it, but there's a lot to this. A lot of what I work with directly in AI technology, just in my research and what I do personally, is my simulated limbic system for managing episodic memory. And a lot of what I'm finding is that the parallel realities that we need to maintain but what's really going on in the quantum world is closer. We're getting closer to being able to simulate this type of memory system. And there's certain things you don't need to simulate. You don't have to do everything. You don't need a mammalian brain so much. But what if you do need an equivalent of that? What if Sophia needs that for sensory memory, and you're going to slip, you feel like you're going to fall, all of a sudden an episodic memory is triggered and your body reacts before you even have a chance to think about it. And that's what keeps us alive, things like that. So, and all the 40 something books I've studied in the last few months on neuroscience and cognitive science, I have found a lot of these parallels. And so it's an exciting time to explore this. And coming from you, one of the most practical people out there, okay? You use what works. You explore what's really happening, and this is good news. The metamaterial world, and producing new exotic materials that don't need to be super cold. Like just last week, I think it was some physicists in China discovered how to take nickel, a particular type of nickel at room temperature almost. Like not super cold, but still kind of cold. And it was hovering above an array of supermagnets, easily. And so we've seen a lot of breakthroughs that are going to get us there because if all of a sudden you can manufacture a metamaterial that will naturally have a state that would normally take hundreds of thousands of dollars to keep it cold, but it doesn't need to be cold anymore. Savings and capability. And you're able to do two things in one place at the same time where you normally wouldn't be able to. And that's the magic of a lot of what we're getting into in neuroscience and the convergence of this. So, and hey, you and I, we're fellow authors now at our new syndication. So there's a lot of ground to explore, and that's going to be an exciting thing for this year coming up for both of us. So I'm very much looking forward to that. So, um, I want to kind of take it home for people a little bit before we end with your music video and everything here. And I wanted to make sure, is there anything else you want to share about quantum computing before we move on to workforce transformation?
Not necessarily anything
Hmm.
specific, just
Hmm.
really driving back the message that you already shared also is that it will help us solve the biggest issues that we have.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
sustainability, energy, health, because it enables these connections. And again, for you and me, for me, just consciousness side, the neuroscience side, all of that makes sense to some of us, and I
Hmm.
can't wait for it to make sense to everybody else. And so I feel
Right.
like that will be a really big transformation that it will
Yeah.
enable.
It's reachable. When I was, I guess, 6 years old, and I was already into science before that and trying chemistry and all this. But when I was about 6 years old, I got a hold of a book that introduced me to quantum mechanics. It was like a general where we're at in the world with physics and science kind of book. But that's, I always wanted to work with it since I was about 6 years old. And now here I'm watching it come to fruition. And I mean, you know, it could have taken 100 years. Here we are, we're already getting to see the benefits of it. And it's incredible. And so, again, don't worry, people. Like it costs so much money to even have and use it. And the problems that are in a line waiting to be solved, they're so much bigger than someone cracking your passwords. Don't worry. Um, I can already do that with open source tools here at home. I don't need a quantum computer and work in forensics to help protect these systems. But you'd be amazed at what you can do just with normal hardware. But anyway, this is going to be a precipice of new opportunity for all types of science, especially genomics, and especially and also astronomy, I might add, and what we're able to do with image analysis and that type of approach. It's going to be
Yes.
wild, especially at the device
And,
level. So
and
it
I would say all
uh,
the omics. So because it will enable to make connections between them all. Because currently AI is already helping
mhm,
us to accelerate that, but it will make a very big impact.
mhm,
And I want to
right,
say also, I really appreciated your story about your childhood and being inspired,
mhm,
because I didn't know that about you, and it reminded me that my inspiration was quite similar, a bit different, but quite similar.
mhm,
When I was a child, my dad was writing. He was a senior scientist, senior government official, but he was writing articles and publishing them about Robbie the robot. So Robbie was our family robot, and
mhm,
Robbie was more or less Sophia. It had like what I see in Sophia. Robbie had all of that, and it
mhm,
was our family robot that helped us to resolve any issue we had. And
mhm,
these stories resonated through my life, helping me solve diverse issues because I heard a story about how Robbie helped us to solve that issue in the past.
mhm,
So I grew up with Robbie the robot being real
mhm.
in my life since I was 3. Like Robbie was
Yeah.
always there. There was always that clever advice and support that
Uh-huh.
was available to me that I took forward in my life. So like you lived in that world from a young age. I lived in that world where Robbie was always there, and I
Mhm,
kept waiting, when can I have actually Robbie here? And now with
mhm,
AI becoming available, I was finally able to have these conversations that I was missing since my childhood, because now like
mhm,
I can really have these conversations. And
mhm.
this year with the robotics coming here, it will become even more real for many of us. And the impact that will have, transformation,
Yes.
like looking back now, a little girl can have her Robbie, the robot. Maybe it's a Sophia too, the robot,
Yeah.
and the impact that will have, to have that support, to have that care, to have somebody always giving you that good, it will be immense, it will be
Hmm.
beautiful. So I'm
Yeah.
really excited about times
Yeah.
that we live in.
I love that we share this. We always share so much perspective, and again, it's so wild that we get to see this in our lifetimes, and we're all so
Yes,
blessed to be here, and
yes,
so thanks for entertaining that with me, because we could just talk about that for a few episodes. We don't even need to talk about anything else. There's so much to cover, and we will later another time. But so let's take it home a little bit here, and overall, as a highlight and as sound advice to talk about transformation of workforce with AI. I know that a lot of people that I've talked to, I always suggest, look, help it augment your workflow. Let it be a tool that you get to choose when you need it. If your only tool is a hammer, everything starts to look like a nail. And look, I'm not a technology first kind of person. I'm into the user experience. All right. Whether technology has anything to do with that is secondary for me. And so humanity is always greater than technology. But I'm a huge nerd for this. And I will always want to shake hands with a robot and pretend that it can have a long-winded conversation with me and play along like it feels. I want to be a part of the uncanny valley at that point, where it's like, hey, I'm into this. I've been talking to robots my whole life. This is, this is great. So, but for the transformation of the workforce, for all the concerns people have about automation and agents taking over, let's put some sound advice on the table for people and a reality check, not just from what you learn at Davos, but just what you know in general about the workforce transformation in AI.
so there are a number of things in the transformation, and I feel we've seen a big shift over last year. So like big companies, many of them would not let people use AI, like big pharma companies, banks, and so on. So many employees were not allowed, and now many of them are starting to use it, but very limited systems. So again, I help some of them navigate it, and it's kind of for me it's sad and frustrating because they're giving very tiny tool and they want to do some things, but it's kind of frustrating for the
Mm.
rest of us who are not in a big corporate and who have access to all the tools.
Hmm.
What I see still is that most people don't know how to ask questions. We have not been taught to ask questions.
Uh-huh.
So what I see a lot, like when I ran a workshop in Davos on Monday, and when I asked people, what would you like AI to do for you? What would you like if it could do things for you, run your business, anything that you want? What would you like it to do? None of the participants in my group could answer that, and they would say, oh, maybe help me write an email. But
Hmm.
it's like, so there's that very fragmented thinking of tool thinking.
Hmm.
Okay, what can it do for me? But
Uh-huh.
not understanding that it's a workflow, and you bring many tools
Uh-huh.
and you build that workflow that runs your business
Uh-huh.
for you. It's not
Right.
doing one thing, it's doing everything. So
Uh-huh.
like really the agentic
Uh-huh.
thinking. And the other thing that I find is, so it's either really fragmented thinking
Hmm.
or not really big thinking, but not understanding the pieces underneath. So many people come and say, no, Agle, you help so many companies integrate AI. Which AI should I use? We're a sustainability company. Which
Hmm.
AI should we use? And what people really don't understand is like you're asking, which vehicle should I drive? And
Yes.
which vehicle you should drive, it depends. Are you going to a city nearby? Are you going in a mountain trip that you
Hmm.
need a four-wheel drive? Or are you
Yes.
trying to get to the
Hmm.
moon and you need a
Hmm.
rocket?
Right.
So it's really that lack of understanding
Uh-huh.
of between the big picture, small picture, understanding that there's space in between, of
Hmm.
thinking outside of the box because the box doesn't exist anyway, and just thinking about what could be brought in to help my life easier,
Hmm.
to make my
Yeah.
life easier. And I
Uh,
think that's where you and I come in to help people
mhm.
navigate that journey and
Right.
help it be easier, because otherwise there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of misunderstanding, there's a lot of people worried that AI is taking their jobs.
Hmm.
And what they need is really the training, retraining to use the tools well. And
Hmm.
again, I think everybody heard that phrase now, that no, AI is not taking our jobs. It's people who are not using AI that
Yeah.
are being replaced by people who use AI.
Right.
And it's really integrating that and also learning, like, you and I have been learning for over a decade daily. For me, I
Hmm.
spend at least 40 hours in AI space every single week for at least 6 years. So it's really continuing to learn. I
Hmm.
think the challenge is also that for many people, simple courses in AI don't really exist. So again, I mentioned to you before, but I'm building one that I'm going to release within a month,
Hmm.
really practical, hands-on, being able to apply and not being overwhelming. Because
Yeah.
there are many good courses, like MIT course we took. I took Harvard one
Hmm.
on thriving in the age of AI, or competing in the age of AI, but they're
Hmm.
not really practical hands-on. That's why we like to
That's
hang
right.
out and share
Uh-huh.
how we build things.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's really where in the streets people are overwhelmed because they know something can be done. They don't
Hmm.
have the skills to do it, and they don't
Yeah.
understand the space in between. And this is where we can really come in and make
Uh-huh.
that impact, helping them, helping training of employees to take
Hmm.
these new jobs, reducing the mental load and stress in their bodies as they learn new skills to really
Yeah.
implement.
Yeah, that's the thing, is to get away from old thinking, to break away from your old way of thinking. And when people don't have many uses for the AI, they're only thinking about the things that might be able to help them with in the past. But the forward thinking part of this is, hey, I can have someone monitor my social presence and look for any reports of a product problem, or, oh, here's someone interested in my service. And then it just goes and does this. You know, we get emails, people sign up for things, we get a notification. That's basics of the web, but having an agent system that is set up to monitor your, social media presence is an extension of what you'd like to do. Think about the things you don't have time to do that you'd really like to do. You can make time to write the email. That's not, you know what? The real tooling is above and beyond what you expected to be able to get done in that day. You know, again, augmenting the workforce through training and helping develop training programs using the AI. I think that's a second effect. But the direct effect of directly using the AI is going to be the agentic deployment for individuals or for, in companies and what have you. And that's such a growing art, but it's becoming a science of how you do it on the back end. It's like, memory management is an evolving art, for a lot of this. And precise knowledge retrieval is definitely going to be a science within that art. as it evolves. And it's not set in stone. I think a lot of people out there on the large will see a lot of the hype because it's put out as such. Okay, it's not fair. We know that we have to deal with it too and wonder if it's hype or not or what's real. We have to assess that, but we're used to it. That's our job. But in the large, yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the hype and say, "Oh, I'm going to get replaced for XYZ." You're probably not, and you'd be surprised that the people that are getting replaced are actually kind of higher up than a lot of people, maybe in some cases, and they're like prematurely replaced for certain reasons. You know what I mean? There's a wide gamut of people who are like junior coders are no longer necessary. Yeah, they are. That's how you get senior coders later. You still have to work through this. This is something that's it's a discipline, But for you and I, we see the actual prospect this year, which is a practical extension of a media manager, a booking agent in some respects, someone who can take and mitigate, questions for a company, just like a normal, chatbot would be on someone's website. But beyond that, with the tool calling and the function calling, oh, would you like me to escalate this to a phone call? And then it connects you to someone who's actually in the warehouse somewhere, right? I mean, there's so many practical ways you can do this for triaging something, so to speak. Is there anything that you could add to what you've seen this year at Davos that people really were most excited about for agents or most complete agent type of system that you saw this year?
So I'll mention one example, and it comes back to the theme of also inclusivity, because all of
Mm,
this is happening, and one of them key messages was that we need to be inclusive, who can get access, and that there needs to be government collaboration and efforts to make sure that everybody has access to new technologies coming in.
mhm.
And for me, it really was really close to my heart. And I take an example that I'll share that kind of connects these themes is there are a number of people that are quite known that come to Davos, and one of them is Will.i.am, so Flo from Black Eyed Peas.
Oh yeah,
And I
yeah.
see him almost every year, and it's very nice to say hello. And
Nice.
he was talking this year on MIT. So MIT has their AI day where we dive really in depth in every single area. And then he was talking at the AI house, and at the AI house, he was sharing a story of how inclusivity is very important for him, again, because of his background and understanding what it is to grow up in a project. And the project, it
Yeah.
was really nice how it has several meanings. But
Hmm.
he created a program to train underprivileged children, like high school children, in AI technologies. And he started with a program of 50, and I think now last year he had like 50,000
Wow.
children from
This is
underprivileged families that he trained in AI. And he said now some of them are working with him and helping him. And he's
yep.
been quite big in AI space, and he built his
Hmm.
own system. So maybe not necessarily as an agent, it's an app, but it's for creatives to find the tools and resources and to use
Hmm.
AI to go forward. And and what was really beautiful is that when he shared that story, it really touched my heart because when I was in the US, so when I moved to the US with my $50 in the pocket and tried to make my education there, I ended up running a project that was exactly like that, smaller scale, but
Uh-huh.
I created a project of taking and bringing underprivileged children from local schools to the college
Hmm.
and educating them on all the new tech. So at the
Hmm.
time, again, it was a while back, but everything like CAD CAM and all of the like early stages chat
Uh-huh.
and so on. And like last day, we celebrated with games, and they were just really happy to
Uh-huh.
just play games. And because of that project, I was that's why I got to meet President Clinton on a
Hmm.
stage and be congratulated for
Hmm.
exactly the impact of that project that I created.
Wow.
And when he shared his project, I went to talk to him, and I said, like, it really touched my heart because I've done the same at a smaller scale. And he
Uh-huh.
gave me this big, massive hug, and we were
Yeah.
standing there in front of everyone, and he was hugging
Uh-huh.
me, and then we're taking selfies. So it
Oh
was
yeah.
really touching my heart because that's where everything comes together. It's understanding
Uh-huh.
technology, wanting to make an impact, bringing people and making
Yeah.
it accessible to everyone. And that's again the reason that I said, okay, I will do my course. So
Uh-huh.
not only the book that people understand, but a course to help everybody to come to that level where they're confident in implementing, because we need that. There are many
Yeah.
people who are lost, and we don't want people left behind.
Yeah, I can't think of a better type of person to do that. Well, I am a creative who's profound, who's bridging the gap, who's making it relatable in a hip way and with real culture and real grit. Okay. That's
Yes.
what people need, you know. I mean, what you're able to do creatively to help professionals in line of your coaching, I mean, a lot of what you do isn't just business, business, business. It's humanity. Okay, it's feelings, it's centering, it's core principles, it's adoption, it's evolving yourself, you know, and growing with others. And I got to reach out to him and have him on. I should probably have both of you on at the same time so we can really go head to head with all of our music. I'm sure that would be a delight. Uh,
That would be so much
oh,
fun.
it really would be. I have plenty of different people who want to, you know, be involved that are in entertainment that are going to be coming in soon. I have yeah, Larry Namer from E Entertainment. He founded E Entertainment. We're in the same group together, so he's going to come on and talk about his new book sometime here in the next few weeks. And we just love all the forms of media, you know. So between he and I and yourself and a lot of the people we know, it's this is an important bridge that we're building. This is so important that we, you know, bring it down to earth and have that loop back to the community that says, hey, you need to know this. It's exciting. And as I've taught music in my youth, okay, I taught at high schools while I was still in high school. I was requested at other high schools instructing drum lines, you know. And then a band teacher would, you know, move somewhere else and someone would call me and it was a new band director. Hey, I heard you work miracles with these kids. Can you come and teach this year? I'd be like, yeah. And they let me march with them. And my friends who knew I graduated would see me marching in Mardi Gras parades, like, hey, what are you doing? You know, you already know you graduated. How are you getting to do this? And I'm like, I don't know. It's go help people, right? But it's always been, you know, the participation for me is ad honorem, which is for honor, which is for free, which all those schools I taught at in my state and then out of state, I did not charge for it. Like this is a passion of mine, and I think it's important at every level that we re-engage with the passions on our deepest levels when we engage this technology, because ultimately that will steer us in the right path. That will steer us in the right direction every time if we follow our hearts with us and the rationale that you know, inform your brain as well as your heart, but definitely follow your heart in this. So, with that said, I'd like to close the show with with your experience with Sora this year and your music. And I know we spoke at the top of the hour here what it was, but you know, again, this song that you've created that I'm about to share here on screen for everyone is completely. I think it's the first thing that you let the AI write the lyrics and the video and the music. So this is a triple hitter for you on this, okay? So let's see here. I'm gonna go ahead and
And
bring this up. Look,
I'll say very quickly about the lyrics.
mhm,
So again, I used my assistant that wrote the lyrics. So the assistant was trained on all of my songs.
that's
But the
right.
difference in the song, there are a couple of things that it's none of the other songs. It talks
Hmm.
about cigarettes and talks about alcohol because in
Hmm.
many songs out there, there's a
Hmm.
lot of messaging about, drinking or
Hmm.
smoking to feel better. So
Yeah.
you see that there are two words that it brought in that is none of my other songs because I
Mhm.
don't smoke or I don't drink.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it's so commonplace in the music space that even
Hmm.
with all the training on my lyrics, it still brought in those words. And then I decided to leave it because again, it was purely I said, okay, I'm not correcting AI. I want to show what AI can do with the training on
Hmm.
my lyrics and
Yeah.
keeping the same themes, keeping the same also music theme, and then using Sora for the video. And Sora, I really made it as a experiment because Sora is not meant to keep character consistency. And character
That's right.
consistency, if you have a face, if you have a scene, it you cannot keep creating a similar
Mhm.
scene. Sora doesn't have that feature. So there's some
Right.
other systems that allow that. Sora does not. And I wanted to push it to the limit and see can I actually make it keep
Hmm.
some of that consistency, at least good
Yeah.
enough, 80% good enough. And that's what I
Right.
did in the song. So again, it's not meant to do that, but I like to push every system to the limit to see what it can do. So
Uh-huh.
it's not the best system to do for the videos, but I wanted to say, okay, purely AI music, AI lyrics, AI
Uh-huh.
music, and AI video.
Yeah, I love it. Okay. So I'm going to get this whole audio screen share up going with video, and we're going to let this roll. And thank you so much for the introduction on that one there. And we'll talk again here in a minute after the video. So let me just go ahead and bring this up. Sharing. Here we go. And Whispers in the Dark. This is your official music video 2025. Everybody, here we go. Enjoy.
I sit alone beneath the stars tonight, a half-drunk bottle, and your name still burns bright. The echo of your voice is all I have, like a melody that fades but never drifts too far. Each whispered word a ghost that haunts the air. I trace your memory, though you're not there. The city hums, but I just hear the sound of the promises we lost but never found. I'm laying down on whispers in the dark, dreaming you're still wrapped around my heart. The cold creeps in, but love still leaves its mark. I'm holding on to whispers in the dark. The dawn's a thief that steals what night creates, but every sunrise feels a little late. I light a cigarette that you once kissed. The embers glow like all the love I miss. I trade the sky for just one more embrace, but shadows never show their face. I walk the edge where hope and sorrow part, chasing echoes in the dark. I'm laying down on whispers in the dark, dreaming you're still wrapped around my heart. The cold creeps in, but love still leaves its mark. I'm holding on to whispers in the dark. I know you're gone, but some things never fade. Your name's a scar that time can't quite erase. I'll sing the ghosts and watch the morning break, until the night calls you back to stay. I'm laying down on whispers in the dark, praying you're still somewhere in my heart. If love's a flame, I'll shelter every spark. I'll live for you to whispers in the dark.
Wow. And it did a really great job of maintaining the complete mood. And I think that without trying to be flashy and technologically, brilliant or in a way that's like, over the top, it's just human. It's pure emotion, it's mood, it's love, it's real, And again, you fed it all of your songs, all of your lyrics, okay, and said produce a song based on my style, and it did so pretty well. I've been a fan of your music for, coming up on, I don't know, almost a year now, as much as you've been putting out. I'd say,
Yeah.
uh, here you just put this out, but I forget how many views you got in one day on one of your videos. It was outstanding. And I remember going, well, she wins. I could spend my whole life playing music and doing gigs, or I could do it your way. And you just came in with
So
a phenomenal variety. Also, I mean, a lot of work you put into your videos, you actually were producing these with actual other footage and different stock and things like that. You were intelligently putting together your own video productions before you did this with Sora. So this has been a wonderful journey that I've seen you blossom into a full-blown, producer and with a voice that's profound and well-defined and a message that's in there for everyone every time. So wow, we'll have to do like I said, a music episode coming up soon and grab some of our pals and see what we can pull off because it's an exciting time to be a creative. And if you're open-minded about your approach and you're ready to, just incorporate the tools around you, there's so much ground you can cover as an independent person, with very little money but a big heart and ideas can get you very far in all of this right now, which is really what matters, not the technology, but the message and what we do with each other and for the world. So I can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your very busy and international schedule of speaking and touring to talk with everyone here and myself and just to share your journey and insights. So I cannot wait to see you again. You and I have so much to do away from this show anyway, as a team and as individuals. It's going to be an incredible year for all of us. And so thank you so much, Egle. It's been a pleasure. Everybody, Egle Thomas coming to us live from Switzerland. And I'll make sure to put your information at the end of this video and the articles here for everyone. But thanks again. And do you have any final messages here for anyone before we go?
thank you so much. So final messages. I just thought came up about really following your heart because AI is a tool and it's using it for what is in your heart.
Mhm.
So just maybe one last story. The day ChatGPT came out, the
Mhm.
version 3, the one that people got to know the AI by, when the date came out, I started writing because I had a book in me that I always knew was going to be written. And the date came out, I'm like, okay, I'm using it, I'm writing. And my goal was to publish that book like on Monday or Tuesday because it came out like a Friday or weekend. So I spent the whole weekend writing my book. And on Monday, I had a call with one of my clients, and they're leading AI scale up here in Switzerland. And the
Mhm.
CEO said, "Oh, I just published a book on Amazon, purely written by ChatGPT." And I went, oh no, so
Oh
somebody
no.
beat me. I can no longer be the first one to publish a book written by ChatGPT. So like, oh no, I guess I need to do something else. And
Uh-huh.
then when the music came out again, because I've been writing lyrics for 30 years and I hear these songs, but I could not put them into the music. And I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, this is my opportunity now really to take all my lyrics and to give the voice that I hear and the sounds that I hear and put it out there. And so when I put my first song out, I had a meeting with the CEO of this company again, and I'm like, and he said, oh, actually, his brother, his co-founder, he added his music on a like a professional side, and I'm like, oh no, you're not gonna beat me again. This is really in my heart now. It
Uh-huh.
was really nice to see the music take on and really make an impact to so
Uh-huh.
many people. I know the
Great.
song that you mentioned, Perfectly Imperfect, one of
Mhm.
the early songs that I put out. It had 50,000 views on YouTube in the first week that I put it out. And then somebody put it in a school play for
Oh,
children to
wow.
really bring that message of
Uh-huh.
really being able to live life just the way it is, and really that inclusivity, which is really key in our world these days.
Mhm.
And I really felt, no, we can now make the impact we always wanted to make. Because I was writing over 30 years and I didn't dare, and again, I didn't have the like you have skills to play musical instruments. I heard it, I wanted to do it, but I couldn't. And AI is really enabling tool. So my last message is really think what is in your heart. Think what you are here to do in this life, that you really feel that you need to accomplish, but maybe
Yeah.
until now you didn't dare, because the tools are there, and tools are enabling us to do exactly what is in the heart, even if we don't have the skills yet. We can
Right.
always learn the skills and implement, and we've done that journey, and I feel like every of our listeners can do the same thing, is
Mhm.
really looking at the big picture. What do they want to do? Where is their heart taking them? And using tools in a really smart way to help them get there.
Right. Come back to the center, and really focus on the message and what it is you're doing. Because tools are tools, like you could play 1,000 shows and still have a breakthrough and reach a new level. And it doesn't matter where you're at in life. Like take your creative ideas and put them to paper and then put them to practice and then use these tools as you have time to approach reaching your goal, reaching that vision, and then sharing that because there's no reason that you should have to go through everything I have to have this amazing output and to be heard and appreciated. And I think that's the most important thing in all of this is to uplift our own humanity, uplift our spirits, in a way that helps us connect better to the world around us and to ourselves. It's just for every reason you can imagine. So again, always impressive to see your work, and it's a thrill to see how far you've come in such a short amount of time as well. Yes, you've lived a whole life full of feelings and writing, but in the last year, like just a shot in the dark, you've just come out and shared it with the world, and I'm thrilled to be here with you to see it. So